My sister slapped me in front of 200 people at her wedding because I wouldn't give her my penthouse. Turns out, a judge were watching. My sister, the blushing bride, stood before me, her white dress a stark contrast to the furious red flush creeping up her neck. We weren't in a private room, hashing out a last-minute disagreement. No, we were in the middle of her wedding reception, surrounded by 200 guests, the string quartet's gentle melody a bizarre soundtrack to the storm brewing in her eyes. The issue? My penthouse. The one our parents had left to me, their only son, in their will. It was a beautiful place, overlooking the city skyline, and apparently, it was the one thing my sister, Chloe, decided she was entitled to as a wedding gift. I don't understand why you're being so selfish, she hissed, her voice low and venomous, a stark departure from the sweet vows she'd exchanged just an hour earlier. It's just a house. You can get another one. This is my special day, and you're ruining it. I tried to reason with her, to explain that the penthouse wasn't just property, it was my home, filled with memories of our parents. But Chloe wasn't listening. Her new husband, a man who looked like he'd been plucked from a catalog for bland-looking grooms, just stood there, wringing his hands and avoiding eye contact with anyone. The tension was a thick, suffocating blanket. Guests were starting to stare, their polite smiles faltering as they sensed the drama unfolding. I kept my voice down, pleading with her to drop it, to let us celebrate her day. Chloe, please, I whispered, we can talk about this later. This isn't the time or the place. That was, apparently, the wrong thing to say. Her eyes narrowed into slits. No, she said, her voice rising, drawing more attention. We'll talk about it now. You will give me that penthouse, or I swear. She didn't finish the sentence. Instead, she did something I never, in a million years, thought she was capable of. She drew her hand back and slapped me. The sound cracked through the room, silencing the music and the chatter. A collective gasp rippled through the guests. For a moment, I was just stunned, the sting on my cheek a distant sensation. I looked at her, my own sister, who had just physically assaulted me in front of everyone we knew, all because of a piece of real estate. The shock quickly turned into a cold, hard anger. I could see the triumph in her eyes, the smug belief that she had won, that I would crumble under the public humiliation. Little did she know, this was far from over. As Chloe stood there, chest heaving with self-righteous fury, a man I hadn't noticed before calmly stepped forward from a table near the dance floor. He was older, with a kind but firm face, and he carried an air of authority that instantly commanded attention. He looked from my reddening cheek to Chloe's defiant face. Ma'am, he said, his voice calm but carrying an undeniable weight, I believe what you just did constitutes assault. Chloe scoffed, rolling her eyes dramatically. Oh, please. He's my brother. It was just a little slap. And he deserved it for trying to ruin my wedding. The man's expression didn't change. Assault is assault, regardless of your relationship to the victim or the occasion. And I should know. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a wallet, flipping it open to reveal a badge. I'm Judge Marcus Thorne. And I'm afraid your special day just took a very interesting turn. The entire room fell silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Chloe's face went from smug to sheet white in a matter of seconds. Her new husband looked like he was about to faint. The judge looked at me, his eyes filled with a surprising amount of empathy. Son, are you all right? Would you like to press charges? I was still reeling, but the fog of shock was starting to clear, replaced by a steely resolve. I looked at my sister, who was now trembling, the reality of her actions crashing down on her. This wasn't just a family squabble anymore. She had crossed a line, a legal line, and in the most public way imaginable. I nodded at the judge. Yes, I said, my voice clear and steady. Yes, I would. Judge Thorne nodded and then turned his attention back to Chloe. In that case, he said, pulling out his phone, I'm going to have to make a call. I suggest you and your husband stay put. The next few minutes were a blur of hushed whispers, frantic glances, and the arrival of 2 uniformed police officers. My sister, the beautiful bride, was read her rights and escorted out of her own wedding reception in handcuffs, her sobs echoing in the stunned silence. Her dream wedding had turned into an absolute nightmare, and it was a mess entirely of her own making. The guests started to leave, their faces a mixture of pity and morbid fascination. As for me, I stood there amidst the wilting flowers and half-eaten cake, realizing that my life had just been irrevocably changed. The legal battle that followed was messy and exhausting. Chloe, out on bail, launched a smear campaign against me, telling anyone who would listen that I was a greedy, heartless brother who had orchestrated the whole thing to ruin her life. Her husband, bless his spineless heart, backed her up completely. The story even made some local news outlets, painting me as the villain. But I had the truth, and more importantly, I had a witness who happened to be a judge. During the discovery process, my lawyer uncovered something that changed everything. It turned out Chloe and her new husband were in massive debt. He had a gambling problem he'd hidden from her, and they were on the verge of financial ruin. The penthouse wasn't just a status symbol for her, it was their lifeline. They had planned to sell it immediately to pay off their debts. This wasn't just about entitlement, it was about desperation. It didn't excuse her actions, but it added a layer of tragedy to the whole sordid affair. The court date finally arrived. Chloe, looking haggard and defeated, pleaded guilty to the assault charge to avoid a harsher sentence. She received a hefty fine, mandatory anger management classes, and a restraining order that prevented her from coming near me or my home. It was a hollow victory. My relationship with my only sibling was completely shattered. A few months later, as I was trying to piece my life back together, I received a certified letter in the mail. It was from a law firm I didn't recognize. My heart sank, thinking it was another legal headache from Chloe. But when I opened it, I found something I never expected. It was a letter from Judge Thorne. He wrote that he had been a close friend of my parents, something he hadn't revealed at the wedding to maintain his professional neutrality. He said he knew how much they loved both of their children and how devastated they would be by what had happened. Then came the real shocker. Enclosed with the letter was a copy of my parents' original will, one I had never seen before. In it, they had initially planned to leave the penthouse to both Chloe and me, to be co-owned. They had only changed it in the last year of their lives, adding a codicil that left it solely to me. Judge Thorne explained that my parents had become aware of Chloe's boyfriend's, now husband's, financial instability and had made the difficult decision to protect the family home from his influence. They had hoped Chloe would see reason and end the relationship, but she never did. They had died before they could explain their decision to her. Suddenly, everything clicked into place. Chloe's sense of entitlement, her rage, her desperation, it all stemmed from a feeling of being wronged, of having something stolen from her that she believed was rightfully hers. She had never known the real reason behind our parents' decision. It wasn't about favoritism, it was about protection. The story wasn't as black and white as I thought. There were no real villains, just flawed, broken people making terrible choices. The penthouse suddenly felt less like a home and more like a symbol of all the secrets and pain that had torn our family apart. I sold it a month later. I couldn't live there anymore. With the money, I started a foundation in my parents' name, one dedicated to helping families dealing with financial hardship and addiction. It was a way to honor their memory and, in a strange way, to try and heal the rift that had been created. I haven't spoken to Chloe since the trial, but I sent her the information about the foundation and a copy of Judge Thorne's letter. I don't know if we'll ever be able to repair what was broken, but for the first time, I feel a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, the truth can set us both free.